Joining us now, Justin Arlo, Teamsters Local 542 in San Diego, and Matt Leichenger. He is the Teamsters Local 804 in New York. They are both members of TDU. We will ask you what that means. In the meantime, Bradley's going to make you a little bit bigger on the screen. We are our regular tech guy, Matt, has been in grand jury duty for an extended period of time. We'll allow the, don't worry about that. Okay, thank you, Matt. And so, Matt, so Bradley will be just growing these guys a little bit as they go. But let's just start with what is TDU? Because part of what this strike ultimately could be about is two classifications that were developed after the '97 strike against UPS. So, Matt, why don't you start and tell us about what TDU is, and also those two different classifications that exist.
Yeah, sure. So TDU stands for Teamsters for a Democratic Union, which is a rank and file caucus within the Teamsters Union, which actually emerged in the 1970s, essentially as an effort to fight against corruption that had existed in the union for a little bit of time. And it has continued as a powerful force in the union. In terms of activating like rank and file members and maintaining a sense of rank and file leadership and organization within the union. And so the two classifications that you were referring to earlier, the 22-4 position, which was actually created in the 2018 contract, this last contract that we're currently under. And what that position is the language, which is very kind of like vague, established this combination driver position that technically is supposed to work like half time inside the building as like a warehouse worker, and then half time as a driver as a way to like take overtime away from regular package car drivers. But in reality, what happened was these 22-4s, Justin and I are both 22-4s, were just used in the same exact way in most of the country as regular package car drivers, except our wages are lower than regular package car drivers, and we have less protections against things like excessive overtime. And we can't have like request loads for like an 8-hour day. So it's essentially just like a cheaper and more flexible driver. And the sad thing is that this position was undemocratically forced upon the union by the old Hoffa regime. And so it's one of the issues that has emerged as a strike issue this time around, but also it's one of the issues that Sean O'Brien and the Teamsters United Slate, which was endorsed by Teamsters for a Democratic Union, it's one of the issues eliminating this two-tier driver position that Teamsters United campaigned on a couple years ago when they were running for office.
Interesting. And Justin, I know you wrote a piece about strike force and talking to, I guess, a member, a fellow member who was involved in that '97 strike. Tell us about that story and what the implications are now, because it's obviously like we're dealing with a different Teamsters today than we did just even 10 years ago.
All right. Tim Peppers is a '97 striker, and he has his fellow coworkers, Jason Mendez. He came to me with a vision, and he wanted to connect that bridge from the cross generations of the '97 and the 224. And there's the gap between us that separates us. And that's what we're essentially trying to do. And so we formed a group called Strike Force. Every Friday we have Unity Breakfast, 7 to 8 a.m. And it's been an awesome way to collab the younger generation and the older generation under one umbrella and just trying to inform what's coming up. And the main objective is to the contract. So it's just rank and file members there. There's no one on the executive board. It's just, a rank and file grass movement. And yeah.
And Matt, give us a sense of like, with this change in the union, is there like, how would you characterize it broadly speaking? I mean, I know that Sean O'Brien has basically said, and we'll get to like why we're talking to you on today. It's a specific deadline date and what's going to happen in the future. But the Teamsters General President Sean O'Brien, you mentioned earlier, has said that this strike could end up being like a much bigger than the union itself. Like what has changed sort of almost ideologically or in terms of the approach of not just the union, but unionism broadly with this new regime?
Yeah. Well, let me give a little context because so Sean O'Brien was actually on the bargaining committee in 2018 initially with the Hoffa leadership, but he was actually fired off of the bargaining committee because he wanted to take a very militant approach. So Hoffa actually fired him. And I think that what O'Brien's campaign and ultimately like what his leadership is really pushing for now is a shift that's taking place, I think, more broadly in the labor movement where workers are fed up and want to go on the offensive. Hoffa's leadership, I think, was very okay, kind of just playing on the defensive, giving concessions as long as as long as he could remain in office and keep his job. But we're seeing not only in the Teamsters with like the election of O'Brien and this leadership, which is representative of a rank and file who wants to fight. We were delivering packages, delivering vaccines during the pandemic, right? Justin and I were both doing this, as were 350,000 other Teamsters. And during this time period, like we were risking our safety while a lot of other people were just ordering things from home. And at the same time, inflation, as we've seen in the last 5 years, has increased at a rate that is higher than we've gotten raises. And so we've actually seen like a decline in our purchasing power as workers at the same time that our conditions have gotten worse. Meanwhile, a company like UPS has seen historic profits, $13.9 billion alone in the last year. And so there clearly is money to go around. It's just the workers at UPS have seen a decline in working conditions, decline in purchasing power, whereas UPS is shelling out billions and billions of dollars in stock buyback and dividends to shareholders. And so what O'Brien's leadership is really representing and showing not only to Teamsters, but to workers across the whole country and, hopefully the whole world, is that we are just not okay with this wealth inequality anymore. We're not okay with these companies taking money off the backs of our hard labor, especially coming out of the pandemic. And I think the movement that we're seeing in UAW as well, with the election of Sean Fain, which was supported by UAWD, which is a reform caucus that has, I think, learned a lot from TDU. We're seeing these reform movements emerge in other large unions like UAW. I believe there's a reform movement kind of emerging in UFCW as well. So in this time of intense wealth inequality, I think workers are just fed up and ready to take back what we deserve.
Justin, give us a sense of the working conditions and what people are making, and just your experience as a driver, and I guess ostensibly also a guy who's supposed to be in the warehouse too, but really more on the driving.
Dating back to 2020 or just currently?
Just, whatever strikes you. I mean, obviously, these are long-standing issues that you guys have had, and just overall, what your perspective and your experience has been.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to go back into 2020 during the pandemic. Again, people were working from home, and the economy shut down while we came into work. We made the economy run. I know I showed up and I felt took a delay in making the pandemic a priority for the workers, like the blocks, the masks, the gloves, everything in the bathroom. Sort of say it didn't take place till later in the year. So we showed up risking our lives, and the volume just increased, and they increased our 70-hour work weeks, so we didn't get any compensation for hazard pay, anything like that. When we finished our 8-10 12-hour days, they made us come back to the yard, and there was loads of volume in the yard that we had to go back and fill our trucks back up with to go back out. And, we were done. And again, family members were passing away, but they still asked us to show up to work, and it just was a crazy time that we won't forget. And we hope the company doesn't forget that as well. And even now, the 2-tier, I think it's best described in a podcast through Teddy Ostro on Upsurge. He explains the 2-tier, and a 2-tier is a cancer not just to the Teamsters Union, but to all unions. And so,
well, explain that, because once you open up the door to sort of like multiple classifications, that's always going to be a way that that management always tries to sort of reclassify specific, more and more workers into that less paid, worse conditions tier.
Correct. Yeah, we do the same work for unequal pay. Matt touched on it that we have less protection. We don't have any protection. That's one of the hardest things. They can work us out to however long they want to, and at night. So we don't have any 9-to-5 rights. We don't have any 8-hour requests. Again, we're just cheaper labor for the company, and that's essentially why we want to make this 224 language be abolished.
And so, Matt, today was a deadline that was set by the union many months ago, as far as I can tell, to deal with the supplemental and the local contracts. What are those? And then let's talk about where we're headed over the next May, June, 3 months, I guess.
Yeah. So each the Teamster contract, there's a national master agreement, which covers every worker in the bargaining unit. So like Justin and I are covered by the same national master agreement, and this covers basic things like wages. Those are like across the board. And then there are like regional and local supplements, which are like attached to each national master agreement at the end. So like I have a local 804 supplement, and this has to do with just more specific kind of language like holidays, vacations, stuff like that. Anyways, this time around, O'Brien decided to have the supplements negotiated before the national master agreement. And there was supposed to be, we were supposed to begin negotiations of the national master agreement, I believe today. But what's happened is that the company was dragging its feet through the supplemental negotiations. I wasn't on the negotiating committee, but I was hearing from our leadership and from the negotiating committee that they would not even show up to bargaining. They would just come out with ridiculous proposals trying to take more and more from us. Meanwhile, we're at the bargaining table trying to just catch up to, inflation, get things like Martin Luther King Day as a paid holiday. UPS said, what does that do for us? Right. So O'Brien said, look, if you're not going to come to the table and negotiate in good faith, we're not even going to start the national negotiations until you get those supplements settled. And this is significant because he has also said that we're not going to extend the deadline of the contract, which means July 31st is a hard deadline. In 2018, from what I've heard, they began negotiations in 2017, and they extended the contract and ratified the agreement in 2019. So the window now is so short that it's turning up the heat a lot. And I think we're going to see, as a result, the likelihood of a strike is much higher because UPS was dealing with HAFA and that regime in negotiations for a long time, which was buddy with the company. And I think now there's a fire that's getting lit under them.
No more management unionism at this point. And no. And we should say, obviously, anybody involved in negotiations knows, like from UPS's perspective, they don't want to lock in any gains on the supplemental or the local before they have to go with the other big negotiations. The more that they can keep alive in there, the more areas they have in which to chip away. And so that strategy is pretty clear. So I mean, I think you just said it, Matt. The likelihood of a strike is pretty high. Justin, give me a sense of like what you guys are doing. I mean, part of like the strike force is part of this, right? You're meeting, you're having breakfast, you're bringing food to people who are working the later shifts. You're starting to build solidarity now, and I assume you've been doing this for months, if not years, so that when it comes time to getting on the picket line and things start getting hard at one point, your level of determination and resilience is greater than the company's.
Oh yeah, the determination is definitely there. That's what our group has kind of helped build. Again, the members that came together, and we had ideas. We made brochures, just for our rank and file members to every Friday for questions, anything to help inform and keep them involved for what's coming up. Matt out of 804 is a strong local. So that was an inspiration. I've been kind of studying what they've been doing up there and hopefully bringing that inspiration down here to our members and our local. And it's been growing every week. First meeting we thought was only going to be 5, 7. It was 15 almost. The next meeting, they grew to 25, then to 35. And then by the 5th meeting, we had 45 members there. Last week, we had the feeder crew come in. Feeder is our truck to trailer. They came in because they heard about what's going on. So it's kind of a buzz that's going around, but they love it. And there's no, anything political going on. And the main focus on it is the contract. And that's where me and Matt have been working, partnering up. And we've been networking with other Teamsters to bring in any information to help build the momentum going forward and help our president at the table. And I mean, this past weekend, I went to the rally in Southern California, in Orange County. So the energy was epic. I think it was definitely something that we needed, and for our members to come up from San Diego to see the vibe and energy, and we got to witness Sean O'Brien speak to the members. And we had members from Local 396, Local 952, Local 63, and it was a mixture of all Teamsters, and it was just a great atmosphere for what we're going to witness. And this is only, in May, April? I hope it's going to continue. It's only going to get bigger going forward. So
do you guys have like a Discord or something like that? Like if there are members of other locals around the country, how many locals are there? And if there are members of other locals who want to like get into conversations with you guys and other locals, find out like what best practices are or ideas, organizing, how do they do that?
I mean, it already started. Me and Matt, he's all the way in New York. I'm in Southern California. He's actually, I met one of his boys, Teddy Ostro. Again, he's the host of the Upsurge, the podcast. Myself and Matt are on there as well. We have another Teamster out of Georgia, David Allen. He does the Roswell channel. It's educational content for all Teamsters. So Teamsters are now starting to utilize social platforms, and we're starting to network, share, subscribe those channels to each members, and we're starting to all come together slowly but surely.
And is there, do you have like a I don't know, like some type of forum where people can go and talk, or is it just you're disseminating through like podcasts?
It's word to mouth and group text. The guys you hang out with at work, Matt can, they have everyone has their own culture and their local.
Right.
And like I said, I'm learning through Matt about how they do things in 804, and we've done things kind of organically down here in San Marcos. Again, we've been, the guys you hang out with, the group of 4 or 5, starting a group text. There's about 11 of us in there. So any video that comes out, we're sharing it. And next, every Friday, when it comes to Friday, we talk about those videos that we share. And then we're just utilizing every platform right now and just to be informed and involved. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. There's also things that the IBT and also TDU are doing to, like reach members across the whole country. I mean, for one, O'Brien has really done, I think, a pretty incredible job of going to UPS facilities. I mean, not just UPS facilities, but he's reaching members all over the country. I don't know when he sleeps. He's going to UPS hubs, talking to the members. We have a UPS Teamsters United or UPS Teamsters app that does weekly updates about the contract, events that are going on. And so we're definitely pushing members across the country to download that app TDU has been hosting national Zoom calls that discuss a lot of, basic sort of like economic education about why UPS has enough money to pay us, even though like when we're on the shop floor, the company's saying, oh, like we're running out of volume, the competition's too intense. So it's a combination, I think, of IBT platforms, TDU platforms, and then also locally members take matters into their own hands and start doing organizing that way as well.
All right, one last question for you, Matt. I guess it's sort of a two-parter. What can people who are not in the union do to help support you guys? And sort of like, I guess, as a subset, when you walk into, you're delivering to, I don't know, you're delivering to fast food restaurants, you're delivering to like other businesses. Are there union people there from a completely different union who are going like how much of the sort of, I guess, trans-union conversations are happening at this point? And what is the opportunity for sort of like support existing across different unions? And what can folks like us do if whether we're in another union or we're not in a union, what can we do to support?
Totally. Well, I'll give one example of something that's happening here in New York, which I think is really exciting. That can maybe be a model for people elsewhere. But an organization called DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, both in New York and nationally, is playing a very crucial role in doing solidarity for Teamsters at this time. And so in New York, we have a citywide campaign called the Union Power Campaign. And one of the parts of this campaign is one of the subcommittees is the Labor Solidarity Committee. And so, for example, we have a rally coming up on April 21st, this Friday. And so one thing that New York City DSA is doing is something as simple as just coordinating, bringing coffee to that rally, showing up, showing public support. At the same time, Jamal Bowman is going to be speaking at this rally, and he's a DSA elected. So DSA is throwing down really hard with the funds that the organization has to do things as simple as show up in numbers, bring coffee. I'm sure if we go on strike, they'll be bringing pizzas. And this isn't something that a political organization alone has to do. This is something that church groups can do. This is something that any type of group or organization can do. They can reach out to, everyone might know a Teamster. Teamsters are all across the country. So just find a way to get in touch with someone in a local Teamsters union and think about people in your community who might be able to just pitch some money in to do something as simple as buying some coffee for a rally. And there's definitely going to be cross-union support. I know in '97, Verizon showed up to the picket lines. That we have the joint councils, which are like the groups of broader Teamster locals within each like region or city. So there's going to be a lot of cross-union support for sure. But I think that example of the DSA Union Power Campaign is significant, at least in our local context.
Great. Well, Justin Arlo and Matt Leichenger, we will be, I think, in touch with you over the next couple of months as that date arrives. And I think, it really does look like you guys are going on strike. And so it's good to see you guys out and gearing up for this because that's I think the best way that you guys are going to have success is that when that company feels the pressure, and because they're going to do everything they can to make you guys look like the bad guys in the situation. It's good that you guys are getting out there. Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll put links to all the things you had talked about in the podcast and YouTube descriptions.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.